It's a new series on the Coach Turf podcast. World Cup 2026 just around the corner, just about to happen. I'm Coach Daniel Northeast, Daniel Northeast for short, and we're joined by Colin Reid. Hi, Colin.
Hi Daniel, how are you? Are you as excited about the World Cup as I am?
No, I'm
Well,
not.
listen, I wasn't going to say
But
anything, but trust me, when Poland were playing Sweden, I was rooting for Poland. So, it was great. I think I was out there in Poland two World Cups ago when the World Cup was going. I think it was in Russia or where was it? So there was people that was going to watch the games from where I was working, and it was fantastic. I ended up watching the World Cup in Poland. I then come back home to England, and then I went out to Le Mans in France. So I watched the World Cup in a variety of countries last time, but very much looking forward to the opening game, which is this Thursday, tomorrow night.
exactly. Well, I am happy that some people are really excited for it. I might get there eventually. I just think it's a bit of a thing after the football season, like a little bit of a break. There's always football happening. Seems like every day there's something happening. But no, I obviously I want England to do well. England, one of my countries. Poland, you've mentioned, would have been nice to see Poland at the World Cup, but oh well, it is what it is. Going to root for England as one of the teams, obviously. But we're going to be talking about our initial thoughts about this World Cup in this episode. So, how do you see the tournament going?
Well, to be honest, for me, it's got too many teams in it. I'm going to be totally honest. I think there's 48 sides in it. So, there's a lot of games. It's going on for 6 weeks. The fact that it's in three different countries, as you know, it's in Canada, the United States, and obviously in Mexico. So it's good in some ways that there's more teams that are going to be involved, and it is purely a money making exercise. And I'm pleased for the nations that haven't been there. But for me, yeah, it's taken a bit of a gloss of it, but really looking forward to it. I think the climate is going to have a massive part, and the weather's going to have a huge part in who goes on to lift the trophy. And yeah, I've got my favourites. And as you know, there's always outsiders, but really excited to see. For me, it's good in terms of the time zones that England games are 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and there's games at 2 o'clock in the morning. So because of the varied time zones, even out in the States, it's going to be very interesting with people getting up all sorts of time of the day or night, whatever you want to call it. And very much looking forward to watching how it goes in terms of the fans, and hopefully they're behaved, and just generally having a festival of fun, and hopefully that we'll get a European side that will win it, but who knows?
Well, you've mentioned the size of the tournament now. I guess for certain countries it's nice because if it hadn't been expanded, they might have not got to the tournament. So that for them it will be nice. But in general, I think they've just taken it a bit too far. That's my personal view. But at the end of the day, in tournaments, any tournament, especially the World Cup, you want football to win. So I hope once we're talking about the winners, hopefully we'll be talking about yes, that team deserved to win and football's the winner.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah. So, but yeah, who are your favourites and why?
Well, if you look at the history of the World Cup, it's mostly been won by teams that are from that continent. Not always, not every time, but I think the heat and the humidity is going to play a massive part in it. So I've got my favourites. And obviously, if we're talking about, from that part of the world, you've got to look no further than Brazil and Argentina because of, where it's taking place. So, and I've also said that, whatever continent it's been in, it's usually been won by that particular side that come from that continent. That's not been the case in every case, but I've also, you can't count out Spain, you can't count out France, and obviously I've got my outsiders. So if I was going for hanging my hat on anyone, it's Argentina, Brazil, Spain, and France. And then there's a few outside nations that I'm looking at. From Asia, Japan an outside chance because of the climate. You've got to look at the African nation of Morocco. And European, like you said, England's got to be having a chance. But I'm not going to go too, not to be negative. I don't want to put the mockers on them. So I'm hoping that we can go deep into the tournament and maybe reach at least the quarterfinal, semi-final, and who knows, hopefully the final. So only time will tell.
We'll see. Obviously, these are predictions. Yeah, you've mentioned your favourites. I'll just share that. I agree with you when it comes to France. I think for me, France have got this really exciting team at the moment. One of the players, Michael Olise, is probably one of my favourite players at the moment. One of the most exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. But obviously, I'll be rooting for England. I want England to
Good,
do well. Do I think
good.
they'll win it? I'm not convinced. I don't think the team's as strong as it was in previous tournaments. I don't think the chances are as high. However, that might work in England's favour. Um, but you've mentioned Brazil, Argentina. I'm going to be honest. I'm not as convinced, especially with Brazil. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk around Brazil. For some reason, I'm not convinced. But we will definitely see. What about any surprise teams? Who do you think will be the surprise nation of this World Cup?
Yeah, I think, like you say, the Moroccans have done well over the last few years. So Morocco's got to be a very good outside bet, along with Japan for me. Japan very good technically, and I think because of the heat and because of their psychological sort of aspects, they're very driven. They're very good. I've worked with Japanese sides, and they're fantastic people to work with. So, again, England as an outsider for me. I say outsider. We're the favourites every time we play, but I think going back to Thomas, and I think he's been a little bit more pragmatic in his selection. There was sort of some criticism from home of who he didn't pick and who he's picked, and I think he knows the players better than we do, and I think everybody jumps on the bandwagon. But I think he's picked a squad that is able to play in a different way. I think if we've got that reputation now that we do try and play, do try and play through the thirds. We are also equipped to go from back to front quite quickly. And when you look at some of the people that he's put in that squad, i.e., Ivan Toney, and even sort of central defenders, in terms of, let me just check my list again because I've got the squad here. In looking at Byrne, it could be one of those situations where if we're chasing a game and we need a little bit of height up front and we need to go a little bit more direct and then, play off of those big men, then we have got that in our locker. So I think, like I said, he's come out and he said he's talked about specialist players, finishes and starters, and he's branded those players, and he's told those players apparently where he sees them fitting into his system. So, yeah, we've got some very good technical players. We got some pace in the team as well. We've got a good variety at the back in terms of having pace in players that I've worked with myself personally, in terms of Esri Konza. And we've got Gay at the back, who's got exceptional pace. So if we do need to push high up the pitch and we're liable to a counter attack and be turned round, then those two can definitely defend those spaces as we push up the pitch in behind us. So for me, it's I'm really looking forward, and I think the opening game we've got friendly tonight, by the way. So I'll be interested to watch that, and it'll be interesting to see whether he goes with his starting his favourites for tonight, whether they're going to be the ones that start when we play our first game on Wednesday next week. So for me, great things ahead. And like I say, I've got an idea in my mind. I think we'll discuss that in the next podcast of who I think his starting 11 will be. I think tonight will be a good indication of that. And in my mind, I know the starting 11. So with maybe one, possibly two, I'm unsure of. But I think I've got the gist of how he's going to set up, and by the numbering system, how he's numbered them. And that's a little bit of a giveaway for me as well.
He's chosen certain players to call who, but I think, listening to him, they've been players that he's definitely, confirmed that he's sure about. And he's, you know, he can't choose everyone. I know there's been some criticism about certain people who he's left out. For example, Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, just to name a couple. But at the end of the day, you know, he's there to make certain decisions, and I think it's time, if any, just to get behind the players to support them, and you know, hope that England do as well as possible. One of the countries for me that could go far, I didn't mention this earlier, but Portugal. I think they've got a team capable of reaching the latter stages for sure. I think they should. On paper, they should. They've got players to do that. You know, their midfield is one of the best in the world, and they've got experiences, you know, doing well at tournaments. If I remember correctly, 10 years ago, they won a tournament. So, you know, they're definitely capable of doing that. So they could be one of the teams, the nations who, you know, people are going to be cheering on for a long time during this tournament. I'd like to see some, you know, a nation that we're not maybe mentioning do well. It would be nice. On a personal note, I know I'm not one of maybe one of these Englishmen who's like this, but I would like to see Scotland doing well. I know not everyone's like that from England. I know that, but for me, I've always felt some sort of unity towards countries from Great Britain and even Ireland. I like seeing them do well. And you know, I know some people from Scotland, and they're top people. So I wanted to see them do well, you know. And Scott McTominay, for example, I like him as a player. So if he has a good tournament, you know, what success will mean to a country like that? It might mean, you know, progressing from the group. That might be it. But you never know with tournaments like this. But as I said earlier, the main thing for me, because we're seeing some things in the build up as well, certain things off the field not looking the way they should be. For example, people not being let into the country. I know checks are checks, and that you got to be careful. But some things might be not as they should be. But at the end of the day, I want us to be talking about football and where football is the winner, where fans are having a good time, where the tournament's a great tournament, and that's the main thing for football to be, as I said, the winner.
Yeah, I totally agree there. Hopefully it goes through with no incidents or trouble. That's the priority for me. And just going back to what you said earlier on about Portugal. Portugal are a good outside bet. I think they're an ageing squad. I think they've got some young players, but for me, that's why I didn't tip them. They are capable of going on, and they've got some great players in there. And, you know, I think they've got that ability to go on. And I think because of the duration and the length of the tournament itself, that's why I've not put them down as going all the way. They are capable, and they've got some very good players in there. Some of my favourite players in terms of Bernardo Silva and obviously Ronaldo, but like I say, both aging. But coming back to your other point around Scotland, and I smiled when you mentioned Scotland. So Scotland are in a tough group for me, and goes without saying they've never qualified, or they've qualified for this tournament. They've never qualified out of their respective group, whether it be in a European Championship or World Cup finals. And one of my favourite players back in the day scored one of my favourite goals, and that was Archie Gemmill back in, I think it was 78, when Scotland beat Holland, but still didn't go on to qualify. So you mentioned Scott McTominay, and I'm thinking, yeah, he's engine, he's up and down. But looking at their group, they've got their opening game against Haiti. I hope I said that right. And then they've got two very, very good sides in there. And so for me, they must get a win in their. I think they've got Haiti in their opening game. That will give them a lift and a confidence and a boost. But the game that's really going to decide for me whether they go on is that game against Morocco. And I just think that Morocco will have a bit too much. Hopefully I'm proved wrong, because, you know, I am British, and believe it or not, irrespective of whether Scotland support England, which I know they don't. I've got some very good close friends who are Scottish, and you know, I always do generally wish them that they do well. But like for me, I think if they go on and qualify from the group, they'll definitely party. They'll party irrespective of the result. So I just hope that it goes smoothly. There's an incident-free World Cup, and like I said, that over the next 6 weeks we were going to be privileged to see some fantastic players in the history of the game, and some great teams. So looking forward to the opening game, which I've just made a note of, was Mexico and South Africa. So what a game to start off with. One of the host nations playing against South Africa, and that should be a great game to watch. And the opening ceremony that, comes before that is something that, we all want to watch. And let's hope, like I say, that we can get off to a good start and plenty of goals.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We want to see good football, plenty of goals. And yeah, while you were talking, I was just also thinking about some players who, mean a lot in the world of football and who might have a good tournaments, but might have different in different tournaments based on their team. However, one player who I'm thinking about now, who I'm really curious to see how he gets on. And this nation is quite actually close to my heart for some reason. It's just happened to grow on me the past few years. Is Norway. They've got for me, they've got an exciting team. Obviously, they've got Erling Haaland up front. They've got other players who have come in, who are coming through, have been coming through in the past years. How do you see Norway's chances at this tournament?
Well, I was talking to a friend the other day, and he's saying that it's an outside bet with Norway, and I think because of the location, I'm counting them out, but they're a big, strong, athletic nation. And like you said, you talked about Haaland, so he's one of the world's best strikers, and I'm looking at them and going, whilst they've got that physicality and they can be direct, I just think that the climate, and they're very fair skinned. That doesn't mean that you can't win it. But for me, I think over that period of time, when you look at the history of who wins World Cups, depending on where they're played, then that would not go in their favour. So, whilst they've got some good individuals, and we've got some fantastic individuals playing in Europe, playing all over the world, in Africa, Asia, and in America, I just think it will be a step too far for them. So, we will see. So when we talk about the groups, I think that in the next episode we'll talk about who we think will go through from the groups. And then, but like today, it's interesting to talk about if we can go back onto the England side and the selection. So for you, you've mentioned two players that left out, and that was Cole and Palmer, Cole Palmer and Foden. Was there any other exclusions, or more importantly, inclusions, that you wasn't sort of understanding of why they got selected?
Well, yeah, I mean, the player, to be honest, actually, when it comes to Cole Palmer and Phil Foden, I kind of understand, especially with Phil Foden. He wasn't as, he wasn't as present in that Manchester City team the past season. Cole Palmer, a little bit of a surprise. I think Cole Palmer's a player who he can have his moments. He can, he can come to life at any moment. And I think he's a player that if England do have a disappointing World Cup play, fans might point to him as one of the reasons why. But that's always easy afterwards as well. But a player I think that who played an unbelievable season, who had an unbelievable season, and probably should be in this England squad is Morgan Gibbs-White. I think he was absolutely phenomenal this past season for Nottingham Forest, and also the form's there. The form was there towards the latter stages of the season, and that's what you also got to look at. So I know some people might end up in squads based on reputation, but for me, it would also. I think you should go through. For the form players, that's the first thing. Who's in form? I mean, you could take for example, Harry Kane's an easy one. He scores goals, but if Harry Kane, didn't have the form, would you take him? If he was, if he was playing all these games and not having a goal for, for 3-4 months, if he hadn't scored, would you take him to World Cup? Maybe yes, but maybe no. If you took him, that would be reputation probably. But yeah, for me, the one that I would have liked to see, Morgan Gibbs-White, is one player that I definitely would have liked to see there. Another player, I guess, is Harry Maguire from Manchester United. I think he's a player who could have been if I think he would have been a good player to have around the squad. He's got that experience. He's been he's had some tough years as well, and he's got Foden. He's one of at the back there for Manchester United this season, quite good, and can get goals from corners, for example. But in a way, I can kind of understand it. But as I said, the main one for me is Morgan Gibbs-White. What about for you?
Yeah, I think what you said about Cole Palmer, I'd agree with you. Obviously, Thomas makes a decision. That's why he's paid the big bucks. I like Cole Palmer. I think he can play as a 10. He can play off the front. He can play in wide areas. He's got the pace to go past people. I know he's predominantly used in central areas, but I think he gives you that alternative in a wide area. We've got Rashford and Gordon that play on the left. And on the other side, we've got Saka and Rodgers can play as a 10 as well. So that's, really important that you've got players of that ilk in there. You talk about Maguire. I think Maguire's one of those like a Henderson, that he's in there for other reasons, that they can be a big influence on the squad in terms of off the pitch. And if you do need him to go on, because there's 15 minutes to go and you need someone sit in front of that back four, whether we have two holding midfield players or one, and it will probably be two if you sent someone like him, he could organise and boss the people in there. Going back to Harry Kane, as you mentioned, even if Harry Kane hadn't scored, then you need him in there because he's one of those players that, as you see him as he's got older, he drifts and drifts, comes deeper and deeper, but he's always got that ability to nick you a goal. He can create his own goals and he can finish goals from others. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. I think the variety that we've got and the options we've got in terms of the players we've now producing, there is an abundance of talent we've got. But now what we're saying is, do you pick your best 11 or do you pick your 11 best players? And I think in the past with Gareth, and it's not a criticism, I think he's tried to put the best players in there. I think Thomas Tuchel is a bit more pragmatic. And like you said, he's not really worried about being popular. I don't think anyone is. When you're in a position of such responsibility, you've got to win. So for me, I think he's picked a squad that are able to play in a variety of ways. They'll be able to play a possession-based, dominate possession, high-intensity squad, which is going to be hard to play at. They can press from the front with that energy. That might need a change of system to do that. Rather than having a 2 and a 1, we might have to go to a 1 and a 2 if we're going to stop people playing out. And again, we've got the height and physicality to score from restarts, whether that be from throws, which we've done in the past. I think Bellingham in the last tournament, when we had a long throw and it was helped on and he acrobatically finished. So we've got all bases covered. So I think Thomas and his coaching staff have done a good job, but they will be judged on results and results only. So for me, that opening game against Croatia, and we've had history playing Croatia in the last 10, 12 years at various tournaments. And for me, it's not an easy game. I think the expectations will be that we win and go through the group. I think that's important. But like I say, it's not going to be the easiest of games. Even if it was a draw, it wouldn't be the worst result in the world. What we don't want to do, obviously, is lose. And then we've got to make sure that we beat Ghana and Panama after that. But like I said, a draw wouldn't be the worst result. But if we can win it, then that sets you up nicely to go on to be the winners of the group. So going back to the squad, I think the goalkeeping situation, Pickford's done well. We've got Trafford in there. And who else have we got? I'm trying to think.
Is it Dean Henderson? Dean Henderson?
It is Henderson. It is Henderson, yeah. So for me, yeah, that's always, I think he's done well over the years. And looking at the back, we've got a good selection. I'll just go through the squad. We've got James, we've got Konza, we've got Kwanzaa, we've got Stones, Gay, Byrne, O'Reilly and Livramento. So we've got height, we've got pace, we've got experience, and I think that John Stones can have a role to play, even as a right back, if we need to put him at right back and then put him in. The one that I'm surprised you haven't mentioned is our matey that's playing out in Real Madrid that wasn't selected. I think he would be another one that could be missed, but like I say, the team that's never picked never loses, but it also never wins. So for me, at the back, we've got some good variety in terms of pace, experience. And then you go into midfield, and when I talk about midfield, I talk about central midfield. We'll talk about Rice and Mainu. I'm a big fan of Mainu, by the way. And it was great that there was a change at Manchester United because it's given the opportunity to get back in. Looking at Anderson and Henderson make up that quartet of central midfield players, but not forgetting that Bellingham can play in now as a 6 or an 8. Everyone talks about him being a 10, and I think depends how the system's picked. And going into there, you've got Bellingham and Rodgers that are sort of the prime candidates for playing in the 10. We know Rodgers can also play out wide and drift in. You've got Saka wide on the right, and then on the left you've got Rashford and Gordon. But like I say, players are able to play across that front three, and up top you've got Tony, Watkins and Kane. So you've got a variety of number 9s in there, which give you the option of going more direct. And if we had to chase it and put 2 up front, and you had a big man playing up top and some with pace running in behind, you've got that combination of Tony and Watkins. And if you wanted to push someone up because you was desperate, like we said, from the back burn and have someone running off him, then you've got all those options. So interesting, very interesting, and very much looking forward to England's friendly tonight, because I think that game, I think we're playing Costa Rica, will also give us an example of what team he's going to start with.
Absolutely. You mentioned the whole squad there, and you ran through some names there, and I just think that, yeah, it would have probably been hard to choose maybe Gibbs White, given those people in midfield, but maybe in place of, I know, someone like Henderson, I don't know. But he's chosen who he's chosen. Go now, support the lads there. Before we end this episode, coming to the end of it, just quickly, your predictions. Who do you think is going to eventually win the tournament? Maybe who's going to become top scorer?
Well, now you've put me under pressure, but if I had to pick one team, I'm going to stick my neck out, and they've done well over the last few tournaments, and go with Spain. I think they've got the individually, they've got some very, very good players. They're very disciplined in terms of the heat. They've got players that play in countries in Spain that's hot, and it's, the humidity out there. I know there's a lot of them, or a few of them playing in England. So as for the scorer, that is an interesting one. I will do a bit of research. I will come back to you on that one, because obviously, you look at Messi, and I'm looking at the Spanish. Is it Alvarez is playing in there? I really don't know. I'll have to look at that. But I think the team that wins it, we talked about scoring goals, is going to be a team that concedes few, that are solid at the back, that have got a good structure, that are not going to be gun-ho, although there are some teams that can go gun-ho. But I think if you've got a solid base, you don't concede many goals, and then you can win by an odd goal or even 2, then great. But very much looking forward to it, Dan. Who's your predictions? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, I'd like to see England win it, because Poland aren't in it, so that's kind of made my decision a little bit easier. Because if Poland were in it, I would say that Poland. Well, I don't know if Poland would win it, but I'd say Lewandowski has a chance to be Golden's, top goal scorer, has a chance. Not saying, but if England win it, I'll say Harry Kane will be top goal scorer, because I think then we'll get goals. But I've got this feeling that France will end up winning it. And if they do win it, then I think it will be. I think Dembele's French, isn't he? If I remember correctly. And he's had a fantastic season, and he gets goals. So I think if France do end up winning, then I think he'll be the top goal scorer, because they'll get goals. I mean, Olise will be up there if they do have a good tournament. But yeah, I'm going with France, because I just think that they have this team that's extremely exciting. They've got players all over the pitch who can make a difference. And so I would, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. And I think, I think they will. So,
well, let's wait and see. And like I said, not long to go now. And hopefully in our next podcast, we'll look at the groups and who's in them and who we think will progress. So we might have a little point system. Let's keep a little tally and see who gets the most points.
We'll see. Yeah, well, hopefully England will win their first game against Croatia. But as you said, it's going to be a tough game, challenging game against Croatia. Croatia are always a good team. They're competitive and they make it difficult for teams. So, yeah, England have a tough task, but all of those countries have a tough task really. And you mentioned the climate, the weather, and that could come into it as well. But yeah, I mean, I am expecting interesting tournament, but I still would prefer it to be next year. To be honest, the tournament. If it was World Cup 2027, I think I'd be more geared up for it. But no, maybe I'll get into it as the tournament progresses. We'll see, or through our videos as well. Do you have any final thoughts before we end it?
Yeah, like I said, when the World Cup's played, it's played in warm conditions in the summer after a long season. If it was played in January in Burnley, up in the northwest of England, then I'd be a lot more confident. Not that I'm not confident, but like I say, those conditions are going to be pivotal in who becomes world champions in 2026.
Well, let's hope it's a great tournament. Thanks, Colin, for this episode, and hope everyone's enjoyed it. And we hope to come back with more videos very soon. All the very best, and let's enjoy the World Cup. Let's
All
get
the
behind our
best.
teams. Come on,
Cheers,
England.
guys. Bye. Bye.